Hello and welcome to Queerful, the only show on the internet brought to you by the Creation Museum, the Kinsey Scale, and I Kiss Dating Goodbye. Hello wonderful people of the internet, thank you so much for hopping over onto my YouTube channel. I've been talking for a while now about making videos consistently, and it's just something I've never actually jumped in and done. This is like the 5th time I've turned on my camera to just start and make this happen, but I'm very much a perfectionist, so I've written out scripts and I've written out all these ideas, and then I film something and then I scrap it and I start over. The more life that I have lived, the more I've come to realize that I live at some pretty interesting intersections. I grew up as a very evangelical Christian in that whole subculture, but I also live in the world as a queer person, and living at the intersection of those two things especially is very interesting. It's a very niche kind of community of people that have that kind of experience. I found that YouTube is a really good platform for kind of building an online community and starting conversations with people, because you can put content out there and you can create a video where you talk about this thing, but you also have the opportunity to get feedback from people via social media and comments and whatnot. And so it kind of becomes this communal conversation. So I'm calling this video project Queerful, which is a word that I made up. But to be queer is to be different, to challenge the norm, to be on the outskirts, in the margins. And add the suffix full to that, and it reminds me of Jesus' promise to have life abundant and have life to the full. And so take that and attach it to queer, and you have being queerful, being different and leaning into that, being curious about things, living on the margins. And so that's kind of my mission with this, is to cultivate curious conversations. I've learned that there's a lot of things I don't know. I've learned that there's a lot of things I don't have answers to. And so through this series, I want to bring up topics that are maybe controversial, maybe provocative, maybe really personal, and start a conversation. So to break it down even a little bit more, the 3 kind of main topics that I'm going to be exploring through this project are faith, identity, and culture. Growing up in an evangelical Christian context, I always had a very strong connection to my faith community, and I was very involved, and spirituality has always been very important to me and still is. But there were times that I always kind of felt like I was standing on the margins and on the outskirts of that community. And as I went through the process of coming out as gay, I realized that experience was being heightened, just feeling on the margins, feeling on the outside. As I've delved more into the mainstream queer community, I've missed that connection to my faith community and spirituality, and so exploring that faith piece of this for me is returning to my roots of let's unpack what evangelical Christianity is. Let's unpack spirituality. Let's unpack topics related to scripture and prayer and worship and all that. So that's definitely going to come up a lot. There's going to be a lot of videos exploring that piece. The second piece that I want to get into is identity. I say identity pretty broadly because obviously a lot of it's going to be talking about queer identity, because that's something that's really important to me. But identity is obviously a lot bigger than just gender and sexual orientation. I think a lot of us, myself included, are really oblivious to how important identity is. We tend to think of ourselves as the reference point for the rest of the world. We see the rest of the world through the lens of our own lives. So as a white person, or as a queer person, or as a Christian person, whatever identity label you want to use, that's going to influence how I see the rest of the world. And I tend to have this subconscious assumption that my worldview and that my lens is normative, and that everyone experiences it in the same way. And cognitively, I know that's not true, and I think most of us know that that's not true, but we don't live that way. And so I kind of want to cultivate some conversations about that. How can we push back against this assumption that my experience is normative for everyone? So we're going to talk about things like gender and sexuality and race. Like I said, controversial and provocative stuff. It's going to be exciting. You're going to be here for it. It's going to be great. And of course, we can't forget the third piece, the culture piece. And by culture, I mean politics, I mean history, I mean pop culture and art and music and all that stuff. The stuff that kind of makes communities and societies what it is. If you know me, you know we're not going to avoid talking about politics, and we're not going to avoid talking about art, and we're not going to avoid talking about Camp Rock and unpacking all of those things and what they mean for us as a society and as people and yada yada yada. So yeah, I'm excited to finally be starting this journey and to be making this project and to be cultivating these curious conversations with all y'all. So thank you for joining me, for clicking on this video. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, follow me on social media so that you can stay updated as to when I post the next video. Really, that's all I have to say by way of introduction. Just kind of wanted to let you know where this project is going and what's to come in the future. Send me ideas, send me questions that you have, things that you want me to talk about. I'm totally here for it. Let's have a conversation. Okay, love you, bye. I'm just kind of being curious, that's a word now.